Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the meeting, and thank you for being here tonight. I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, March 5th, 2025 City Commission meeting. And would you please do the roll call, Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. Would you please all stand and join me in the flag salute? If you can't stand, it's okay. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight, under item number 3, we have 2 proclamations today. One is for the March for Meals month, and I'm wearing my I Heart Meals on Wheels button. I would like to go ahead and read that proclamation. So whereas each March, nutrition programs across the nation march for meals and celebrate the historic day in 1972 when national nutrition programs for seniors were added to the Older Americans Act. This legislation supported the rapid growth of Meals on Wheels network that now collectively serves over 2.2 million seniors each year. Whereas March for Meals is a dedicated month recognized nationally for supporting your local Meals on Wheels and congregate meal program that consists of generous volunteers coming together to deliver nutritious meals to older adults and people with disabilities. Whereas together with the generous support of the community, the City of Oregon City, through its operation of the Pioneer Community Center, provides up to 45,000 meals annually to eligible clients in need. Whereas February 10th, 1979, the City Commission of the City of Oregon City dedicated the facilities of the Pioneer Community Center to senior citizens of this community for their enjoyment and use. Whereas the mission of the Pioneer Community Center includes providing essential nutrition programs and social services that promote active, healthy, and independent living. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Commission of Oregon City calls upon citizens this month to recommit to the mission of the Pioneer Community Center and does hereby proclaim March 2025 as March for the Meals Month. And we call upon residents of Oregon City to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and actively participating in the special observances of March for Meals Month. I encourage our community members to consider contributing their time through volunteer opportunities, making in-kind food donations, and financial support to sustain this essential program that serves those in need within our city. In witness thereof, I will set my hand this 5th day of March, 2025. So I have 2 people who would like to come forward and talk about this. Come on up. Hi. Is it just you? Because I thought I had 2 slips here. Do they want to come up now? Come up now. Just everybody come up. Yeah, I have Tom and, hi, Tom. Have a seat. And Frank, you want to come on up?
You want to go ahead and press the button, make it glow green?
Yeah, so make sure the green button's on.
Okay. I can start. So thank you, Mayor McGriff and City Commissioners, for your support in the Meals on Wheels program of Oregon City and West Linn. I am the current Meals on Wheels coordinator for the Pioneer Community Center and wanted to extend my gratitude for your help in raising awareness this month. I know that this program has been around for quite some time, but I want to stress the importance of the consistent growing population who need our help. Meals on Wheels is not only about the nutrition, it's about the knock on the door that our recipients receive and the friendly faces they encounter when they answer. Most of the drivers that you see here tonight could tell you endless stories about the conversations they have had with our current recipients. It is sometimes the only person they will speak to for that day. Each of our recipients can independently stay in their home with the help of this program, providing a hot meal which is delivered by a volunteer driver, checking in on them 4 times a week. Any support this month or any month can allow us to continue the growth of our program as we continue to see the growth of the needs in our community. Raising awareness with this proclamation for the month of March 2025 will help us continue our mission to feed those who are most vulnerable in our community. Thank you again.
I want to start by telling you guys.
So start by giving us your name.
Pardon me?
You have to give your name and city of residence.
Tom Shaw and my wife and I my wife Karen, and I are in our 4th year of driving for Meals on Wheels.
And your city of residence?
I'm sorry,
City of residence.
Oregon City.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I want to start out by telling you that you have an awesome team at Pioneer Center. Alex and Angela do a great job, and they get us out every time we have a route. They are fully prepared and do a great job for us. And there's a simple reason Karen and I drive for Meals on Wheels, and it's very selfish. It's an honor, and it's very gratifying. So it's very self-fulfilling. So that's, we're very pleased to be part of the program. Clients on our route are good people, often housebound, and because of they're that way because of an affliction or because of their age. They're not asking for a handout, but asking for a hand up. And it's very gratifying to work with them. We're proud to have a small part in Meals on Wheels, and we thank you guys for the privilege.
Thank you.
My name is Frank Washburn, and I live in Oregon City as well. I wanted to share with the commission and Your Honor a little background as to what it means to deliver meals and to these clients of ours. I know you probably received a lot of data regarding the program and what it does for our clients. I want to share with you a couple of stories to give you an insight as to what it does for us who make these deliveries. I knock on the door of an apartment and I wait. There's no need to be impatient. There's no need to knock again. There's no need to ring the doorbell. I know she'll be there. And I wait to hear the shuffling of the walker across the linoleum floor, the fumbling with the keys for the door lock, and she opens the door and greets me with a smile. We exchange a few pleasantries and we get ready to leave, and she says, "Make sure you pray for the families in Los Angeles who have lost their homes, and you have a blessed day." There's a handicap ramp that I walk up to a double-wide manufactured home, and there's a doormat, the U.S. Marines, and I open the door and I yell, "Meals on Wheels," and he comes walking out of the living room. Again, he has a walker. He's a big man. You could tell at one point in time he stood over 6 feet tall. He's 98 years old. He has a hat on that says U.S. Marines, World War II. Well, hell, I was in the Army. 1968, I was in Vietnam. I stick out my hand and I say, "Thanks for your service." And he smiles, and I say, "Where did you serve?" And he looks at me with those ancient hollow eyes, and he says, "Guadalcanal." And I know I'm shaking the hands of a real American hero. I missed 6 weeks last spring. Courtesy of Agent Orange, I developed prostate cancer. When I went back out on my route, there's an 89-year-old widow who's always talking to me about growing up in Montana and North Dakota. And she says, "Where have you been? I missed you." And I said, "Well, I missed you too. I had prostate cancer and I had my prostate removed." And she said, "How are you doing?" And I look up kind of sheepishly and I say, "Depends." She bursts into a laugh and says, "Welcome to my world." One more story. There's a decal on the screen door of the home, and it's to the firemen notifying them that they have a pet inside. That's a dog, and his name is Matty. And I rap on the door, and all hell breaks loose. And I hear this thunderous voice, "Be quiet, Matty, it's just Frank from Meals on Wheels." There's not a lot of times anymore in my life that somebody calls me a young man, but he does, and he asked me, "Young man, would you mind bringing my garbage can in from the street? I just don't feel like I can make it that trip now." We call it Meals on Wheels, Madam Mayor. It's a lot more than that. We get as much more, so much more out of this service than we can ever plan to deliver. And I want to thank you all for making this proclamation.
Thank you very much for coming in. So we don't have our day yet, do we?
We do, March 18th on Tuesday.
Okay.
So 2 weeks from now. Yep.
Okay. So last year, I worked with Alex and a couple of other folks at the senior center to deliver some meals. I also went to that gentleman's house, the 95-year-old, and I was on wheels. I had had foot surgery and I was on a scooter. We managed to get the scooter in the car to deliver the meals. And, you know, everybody that we served, except for one guy, they all had ramps. So I was able to just scoot my scooter on up the ramp and they kind of said, what happened to you? You know, as my foot's in a boot. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm delivering your," and I had a basket on the front of my scooter. So I said, "I'm delivering your meal." So they were quite taken aback, but I spent quite a bit of time with the gentleman with the wheelchair ramp and the mobile home, and I told him about my father's service, and we had quite the conversation about that. So we had a lot of fun, and I said, "Well, I hope I might see you next year when I do this again." So I'm looking forward to it, and I want to thank staff for all they do to keep this program going, and thank the staff for involving me, and thank you for helping me last year. I am all good. I won't be needing a scooter this year, so I'll be able to walk up to the door this time.
Yes, and thank you again for your time today. We have other volunteer drivers here as well. It's all important, and when it comes to the meal itself, it's not, like Frank just mentioned, it's not just the meal. So thank you again for your time.
If you're a volunteer driver, would you raise your hand if you're here? Thank you. You are so appreciated. And we have an item on the agenda that's going to really help the senior center under item number 7. So we are looking forward to that. All right, so the next proclamation has to do with March is also another month. It's International Women's History Month. And so I'm going to read this. So whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside the home, and whereas women have played a unique role throughout history of the nation by providing a majority of volunteer labor force of the nation, and whereas women are particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation, and whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement, and whereas women have served our country courageously in the military, and whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own right of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and especially the peace movement, which creates a more fair and just society for all. And whereas despite all these contributions, the role of women in history have been consistently overlooked and undervalued in literature, teaching, and study of American history, now therefore let it be resolved that the City Commission of Oregon City does hereby proclaim March 2025 as Women's History Month, and as part of the observance, encourages all people in Oregon City to join in celebrating the important contributions women have made in Oregon City, Clackamas County, Oregon, and across America. And I will sign this document the 5th day of March, 2025. And I would say generally the library is going to have an amazing display on different aspects of women's history and women's contributions. So be sure to stop by the library. It's ever changing all the time, and the staff does a great job of bringing these things out so that our patrons can say, oh. And also don't forget to go and look at the amazing mural that we had from our birthday celebration. It's up at the library. All right, so let's move on with the agenda, and we have some presentations. Wait a minute, do we have anybody wants to make a comment under item number 4 for an item that is not on the agenda? So I don't have any slips, but I want to just say one more time. So if it's an item not on the agenda and you want to talk about it, you're more than welcome to come up. Okay, so I don't see anybody, so we're going to move on to number 5. So we have item A, presentation, Metro Nature and Neighborhoods Community Choice Grant Program. And who will be presenting that? Tom? Okay, all right. Just don't turn over.
So tonight we have a presentation from Metro about the Nature and Neighborhoods Community Choice Grants, which is a very unique opportunity that we are invited to be a participant in. And so tonight we have Metro District 2, Councilor Christine Lewis, Krista Gardner, and Gabrielle Brown to talk a little bit about this grant program and see if we're interested in participating.
Councilor Lewis, are you there with us?
Thank you so much.
Well, we have a little technical difficulty. We see you, Christine, but we can't hear you. Did you admit everything?
Still can't hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for your patience with that, Mayor, members of the commission. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. I am joined by very able members of my staff, but really appreciate the time and opportunity. There's so much going on. I'm really lifting the value of this program and the opportunity it has, particularly for residents in my district and Oregon City. I'm joined tonight by members of my staff, but want to talk specifically before I hand it over to them, because we know when our communities are given the opportunity to shape priorities in their own backyards, good things happen. And the projects that are truly reflective of our community's needs and community members who have more opportunities to take an active role in shaping what they'd like to see where they live in their backyards and nature close to home, that's when we have the best projects and the best outcomes. So thanks to the voters of the region, nearly 3 decades of voter investments have allowed Metro, on behalf of the public, to work with partners, government agencies, nonprofits, in order to protect clean water, restore fish and wildlife habitat, and provide opportunities for us to find nature close to home. We know that community members really don't distinguish between where the funding comes from, and we know that voters and partners just want to see the investments made and opportunities advanced to connect with nature. So everything Metro is doing is to protect habitat and water quality and help people connect with nature. And that depends on ongoing collaboration with park providers, community and conservation organizations over time. We can see the benefits from this ongoing collaboration in sites close to home, Kenema Bluff, Noodle Creek Canyon, and projects like site restoration of the John Inskeep Environmental Learning Center. We've worked on designing and enhanced water quality at Noodle Creek, and we've increased the capacity of the ELC. So Metro's Parks and Nature Bond is making clear progress in acquiring priority habitat, opening sites, and increasing access to nature. One of the key goals for the Parks and Nature Bond measure is to ensure that communities and partners who have been excluded from government decisions and who have not been adequately or equitably served by past bond investments are engaged. And this program is a pilot coming out of the 2019 Parks and Nature Bond in order for us to engage those folks in our new projects. With that, I will hand it off to Krista, who will describe a little bit more what we're doing with this pilot and how it is participatory budgeting at the district level.
Great, thank you so much. Like Councilor Lewis mentioned, my name is Krista Gardner, and I am the Nature Neighborhoods Capital Grants Program Manager. Could you advance the slides to the 2022 Program Design Committee? At the core of the Nature and Neighborhoods Community Choice Grants is community, starting with the 2022 Program Design Committee and continuing with the 2025 Review Committee, as outlined in the Parks and Nature Bond Measure, which was passed by the voters and by Metro Council. The Review Committee comes from a wide variety of backgrounds and experiences on best practices related to community engagement, climate resiliency, water quality, real estate, landscape architecture, and habitat restoration to create the biggest benefits for people, plants, and wildlife. So in 2022, Metro staff worked with an ad hoc program of a design committee, which was of community members, to ensure that the community choice grants met the Parks and Nature Bond, as well as the principles of participatory processes. And the effort culminated in the community choice grants guidebook, which is up on our website. In 2023, Metro staff then worked with an ad hoc review committee to implement the participatory process for the first pilot grant cycle, which was in District 4 in Washington County. And in 2025, Metro staff will again conduct an open recruitment and convene an ad hoc review committee to provide oversight on the participatory process for grant idea collection, to participate as community in the project development, and to confirm the community vote to recommend to Metro Council for grant funding in District 2 in Clackamas County. Next slide, please. In 2025, Metro leadership recommended that the grants focus on Metro's District 2 east of the Willamette River, which includes the cities of Gladstone, Johnson City, Milwaukee, Oregon City, unincorporated parts of Clackamas County, and the parks provider of North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. A partner coordination team of staff of these agencies will help to guide the community choice grants implementation in Clackamas County. At the same time, Metro leadership identified flexible funding to pay for engagement and project development, which allowed us to hire, again, the wonderful consultant team of Not Design, Co-Locate, and Multicultural Collaborative, which we worked with in Washington County. Many of the portions of the participatory process that we share with you today are collaborative ideas and insights learned over our first pilot round in Washington County from the partner coordination team of jurisdictions in Washington County. As I mentioned, the participatory process was developed by the Program Design Committee and Metro staff to interpret the purpose and criteria of the Parks Bond. This framework adheres to legal and financial constraints, project development best practice, and respects the staff capacity and autonomy of local jurisdictions. The participatory process, as outlined here in this graphic, follows some of the principal milestones of a typical participatory budgeting process due to the advocacy of Participatory Budgeting Oregon, including a community-led program design, community-generated ideas in graphic number 1, collaborative project development in the community design workshops in 2 and 4, and community voting to recommend project funding in 5 and 6. Next slide, please. There are major program phases of this project. In spring of 2025, we expect to do the idea collection phase. In the summer of 2025, the project idea vetting. In fall and winter of 2026, project development, going into the community vote and funding awards in spring and summer of 2026. Next slide, please. The community choice grants begin with idea collection, which provides in-person and digital opportunities for community to share their ideas for what types of projects should be created. It also includes a general education on the type of projects that might be eligible or feasible for $250,000, which is the maximum grant award, the process, the funding, and to recruit participants in subsequent phases. So as you can see here, we have in-person idea generating workshops in community spaces, a digital platform, And we were really pleased in Washington County to have 118 project ideas submitted with over 100 survey responses. Next slide, please. After the ideas are collected from the community, each project goes through a feasibility review by the jurisdictional partners to ensure that it meets the needs of the community and the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction can then determine whether the project idea fits within the park's master plan or in existing parks. Metro will ensure that the project ideas meet bond and program goals and so are eligible for funding. Metro then updates the program website to reflect the updated status of each of those project ideas. And just as an example, in the first round in Washington County, Metro and partners determined through this project vetting the best 45 projects of those 118 ideas that met the requirements, purpose, and goals listed in the guidebook, as well as the needs of the community and the jurisdiction. Next slide, please. Project development is where the ideas submitted during the idea collection phase are developed into complete project proposals. Project development happens through 6 facilitated design workshops collaboratively with park owners, landscape architects, and other design experts and community members in 2 phases, the idea refinement and the proposal refinement. Through these facilitated design workshops and several one-on-one design meetings with partners, the project team creates a scope, budget, including contingency, and a schematic site design for the community to choose during the community vote phase. These collaborative efforts allow jurisdictional staff to be responsible for ensuring project compatibility with their jurisdictional policies, practices, plans, and existing parks. And as an example, in the first round, the community voted on the conceptual illustrations and narratives of 45 project ideas and chose 28 projects to move forward into the next phase of proposal refinement. And you can see here examples of the community workshops as well as that first vote. Next slide, please. So in the phasing of this project, we expect to do community design workshops in winter of 2026. Next slide, please. And conduct secondary development where the consultants and agency staff collaborate to match project ideas to agency priorities and align project elements to community input and maximizing feasibility. Next slide, please. Through this series of facilitated design workshops and several one-on-one design meetings, the project team creates a scope, budget, and a schematic design for the community to choose during the community vote phase, as I mentioned. During the first round of voting, the voting is restricted to the project area of Metro's District 2 east of the Willamette River. And during the second round of voting, the voting is allowed Metro-wide. However, in the first round, in the first cycle in Washington County, over 95% of the voters were within the project area. And in that Washington County cycle, after the projects were developed, we had 1,600 verified votes were received, with 89% of those votes coming from the community of focus. And the community voted to choose which of the 26 projects should be funding. Then after the vote, the Program Design and Review Committee recommends projects for funding to our Metro Council. For example, in the pilot, the Metro Council approved $2.3 million in grant awards to 15 projects, and these projects are now with their respective jurisdictions for final design and construction. Next slide, please. That final vote would happen in late spring or early summer of 2026. Next slide, please. Once Metro Council has awarded the grants, Metro executes an IGA with the public owner of the property. If projects need changes after the Metro Council's award and IGA execution or contract execution, the jurisdictional project manager would work with the grants program manager to make changes to the scope of work. and we expect that the award of funding would happen in the summer of 2026. Next slide, please. So with that, I want to thank you for your time and to hear our presentation, and thanks for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krista. You have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just see it as kind of an exciting opportunity for the public to see the process. You know, a lot of the time this work happens behind the scenes, it's done by staff, and then we're presenting a kind of, you know, mostly baked idea to the public. This is an opportunity for the public to be a part of that process, see how it works. I think particularly as we talk about, you know, future builds and how we do this, this could be a unique opportunity to share how this process works.
Yeah, we did something very similar on a smaller scale in the development of Ladderette Park.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Councilor Lewis, thank you so much for zooming in with us today. I know you're just very, very busy. Thank you, Krista. We appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the Natural Resources Committee Annual Report. So nice to see you both again.
Good evening, Denise, Mayor McGriff, and Commissioners. Thank you for having us today. My name is Samantha Wolf. I live here in Oregon City. I am the current chair of the Natural Resources Committee, and with me is my vice chair, and he can introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian, Vice Chair of the Natural Resources Committee, and I live here in Oregon City.
So today we're going to present the greatest hits of 2024 of the Natural Resources Committee. We have a background of what our accomplishments were and in the last year. So the Natural Resources Committee met 9 times last year. We had a joint meeting with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee in October, and in June, the committee decided to hold regular meetings every other month rather than monthly. Starting in March of 2024, the committee returned to hybrid meetings instead of just Zoom. And so we have partial in-person meetings as well as Zoom meetings. And we are now meeting in the community room at the Community Development Department, just across the parking lot here. Currently, the committee has 5 positions filled, but hopefully to be back up to our official 7 maximum membership with anticipated appointments of Emily Lisborg and William Foster. Thanks to Doug Neely for coming back to the committee to assist us. Doug, you are always welcome to our meetings, even if you are no longer an official member. Your experience and wisdom are a huge asset to the committee and community at large. Our current participating members are Brian, Monica Ann Stone, Dakota Hufford, myself, Samantha Wolf, Dave Trotter, Doug Neely is going to be rotating off, and Emily Lisborg, who is seeking reappointment. Our current officers are chair is myself, Samantha Wolf, vice chair Brian Kvisler, and secretary Dakota Hufford. And Brian's going to take it from here.
I'd like to share with you a quick summary of what the NRC has discussed in 2024. NRC business began in 2024 with a discussion about tree removal and sidewalk mobility with Josh Wheeler, Assistant City Engineer, present to give some background and explanation on the city's sidewalk repair and how they impacted tree removal. At this same meeting, planning staff also provided an overview of various tree codes in the metro area and some of the fees associated with tree removal, mitigation fees for Oregon City and many of our neighboring communities. What we were hoping to accomplish was to learn what our neighboring communities are doing and understand how we can take that knowledge and experience that they've had and apply it here in Oregon City. Tom Kissinger, Parks and City Manager, attended the February meeting and discussed tree planting projects for parks and pollinator projects, including the pollinator garden at Clackamas River Trailhead and at the swimming pool. We look forward to further collaboration with Parks staff and PRAC in 2025. The committee spent much of 2024 discussing and crafting a tree canopy and tree code recommendation to the City Commission. This letter went through multiple revisions, informed by input from Public Works, Parks, and Planning staff, and was discussed with PRAC NRC presented that recommendation to the City Commission at your recent February 5 meeting. At the joint PRAC NRC meeting October 9, the committee discussed the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Project and got input from PRAC members on the public tree inventory and tree canopy policy recommendation letter. The NRC also provided feedback on the climate-friendly and equitable communities requirements that will be coming before the Planning Commission and City Commission for formal adoption. The committee discussed the proposed street trimming, tree clearance code amendments proposed by Public Works. NRC recommended the approval of the amendments at our last February 12 meeting. The committee is ready and eager to support a public tree inventory and has discussed a variety of grant funding and technical sources should the City Commission decide to direct staff to undertake that project. The NRC continues to discuss and recommend participation in the Bee City USA program through the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation and continues to advocate for the city's voluntary participation in integrated pest management. The committee will be reviewing and brainstorming ideas for our work plan for the remainder of the biennium 2025 at our next meeting. And thank you all for the opportunity to report here to the Commission.
Thank you so much. We certainly appreciate getting a written report. That's real helpful. You guys are doing great job. Any questions, commissioners? Thank you so much. Next, we have a report. Do we have a written report from CIC? Linda Basinger, come on up. I think we had a question about that from last year. We were hoping we asked CIC to submit a written report as well.
I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name's Hannah Schmidt, and I'm Community Engagement Specialist for the City of Oregon City and the City Liaison for the Citizen Involvement Committee. And with that, I'm here just to support our chair in their annual report.
All right, thank you so much. Is it on? Yeah, there you go.
I'm Linda Basinger, Chair of CIC, and I live in Oregon City. And I want to thank you for inviting me on Women's History Month to present the annual CIC report.
Awesome.
In March 2024, Alex Rains, the new assistant manager, was introduced to CIC. Tony Conkle gave a city update. Patty Nelson gave a presentation of the Malala 24-inch transmission main, and Tower Vista has combined the meetings with Hellendale, and Josh Kaiser chaired that meeting in March. In April 2024, we had the annual police report from Sean Davis. Melissa Sebastian gave an aquatics and recreation highlights for the summer events update. The Pioneer Community Center update was from Cecilia Rose, and Jared Lyman gave a CIC budget update. In May of 2024, John Lewis gave us Public Works update. Doug Whitley gave a Clackamas Fire District update. In June 2024, Karen Archibald from TriMet updated on the outreach programs. Kendall Reed presented the Parks Master Plan. CIC members planned the National Night Out CIC booth. We had no meeting in July due to the 4th holiday. August 2024, Jackie Hammond Williams asked the CIC to support a fund for the retiring police dogs. A letter for CIC report and a request for action was presented to the city commissioners. That had 100% of the CIC support. Lamont Brown gave a DEI presentation. Park Place Concept Plan Code Refinement was presented to Oregon City Planning Department. CIC voted to refine our bylaws 2-30-03D for membership. This would change the wording, adding work, own property, or reside for membership in for the CIC. We did that because we had excluded a neighborhood by our verbiage. September, we had no meeting due to Labor Day weekend. On October 24, Love One Community Engagement gave a presentation by Brandy Johnson. Dana Webb and Christina Robinson Gardner presented the McLaughlin Boulevard Plan. Josh Wheeler gave the CIC update on the OC erosion control code. CIC members were offered a tour of 4 of the watershed plans. In November 2024, Valentine Magna presented how to communicate with people experiencing unique circumstances. ASK Engineering presented a Hazel Grove Westling Farms Neighborhood Association project. Dana Webb gave us an update, CIC on Public Works. Hazel Grove Westling Farms are reactivating the neighborhood, and CIC voted to approve funds for postcards. Gaffney Lane is now an active neighborhood association again, and has 2 CIC members. Clackamas River Works providers presented by Christine Holenbeck. Julian Allen gave an update on Downtown Oregon City Association. Greg Williams presented the Oregon City Library Flooring Project. And CIC selected new paper stock for our postcards. And on January 2025, John Duke presented plans for a caring place. Vanda Development presented for a subdivision on 19531 South Central Point. Plans were discussed for a CIC to have a booth at the Spring Forward Community Resource Fair. And in February, Julian Allen updated CIC on downtown Oregon City Springs and summer events. Aquila Hurd Vafit presented amendments for the Flood Management Overlay District. And in March 2025, the Neighborhood Watch Program was presented by Chief Davis and Patty Stewart, Oregon City Police. And a booth for the Spring Forward Community Resource Fair was finalized. Our biggest CIC accomplishments were changing our bylaws to include a neighborhood, having Tower Vista join Hillendale for neighborhood meetings, Gaffney Lane becoming active again after COVID, and working with the Hazel Grove Westling Farms, getting them active. The first meeting will be in April, and we have speakers informing CIC members of the state of the city and getting that information back to our neighborhoods. Any questions?
No?
Okay.
You want to turn in a report? We'll put that in the record, which will be great. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who serves on the CIC. Some of us are past members of that group ourselves, and so we know how important it is. Thank you. No clapping, please. Thank you. It's okay. We appreciate it. Okay, now the report we've all been waiting for. Chief Davis, are you ready? Is this going to exceed the John Lewis PowerPoint of the Year award?
I'm not presenting on that last slide. My goal is to be John Lewis's PowerPoint, so.
We all strive for that.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor, Commission. It's an honor to be here tonight to present our annual report for 2024. I do have a lot of slides, but I think they're important, and I think I can get through them rather quickly. So if you want to interrupt me during the slides, that's fine. If not, if you got questions at the end, we can address those. So in 2024, we had 46 sworn officers and 15 and a half non-sworn staff. We worked really hard to get our hiring up to full staff, and so we hired 10 sworn officers. 2 of those were lateral officers. We hired 2 non-sworn. One was code officer, and one was our case manager for behavioral health. We did have some staff that did leave in 2024. Sworn officers, we had 2 retirements. We had a handful that unfortunately didn't make training, and 1 left policing altogether. We'll go into some of the stats. So calls for service is any call that is dispatched through our CAD. It could be a self-initiated call for service, or it could actually be when someone calls for service. Not every calls for service actually generates a police response. but those are still included in this. So you can see in 2024, we had a slight increase and just over 29,600 calls for service for our department. Of that, we broke out self-initiated activity because I think it's pretty important. Our staff wants to be out there, be proactive, and try to prevent anything from happening. So you can see we're very active. 27% of our calls for service are some sort of proactive police response. We always get a lot of questions about homeless and behavioral health, so I broke these out, and I broke these out for several years. You can see that when we clear a call, we have to use a clearance code. And I'll just re-emphasize that we had a new CAD in 2018. It's actually more antiquated than our older CAD, so we can't do keyword searches. So we had to come up with a solution to track homeless-related calls. So we capture a lot of these, but again, our officers can clear multiple clearance codes, so they may not be fully accurate. But you can see that we had a slight decrease last year for homeless-related calls. I think some of that had to do with relocating the homeless liaison officer to patrol to help fill staffing needs. Behavioral health related calls for service, they're on the right, they actually went up. I think that has to do with some of the calls for service, but I also think it's bringing on the case manager. They're out there taking more contacts, more responses. You can see our suicidal attempts actually went down, which is great, but our suicidal threats, which when someone calls that they might be suicidal, that actually went up. Just a quick, we always talk about stop data. Since 2017, every agency has to report self-initiated activity on a traffic stop or pedestrian stop. That's analyzed by, we report that, it's analyzed by the CJC, and they put out a report. There's a link here if you're interested. But they analyze from July 1, 23 to June 30th, 2024. We also have access to that data, so we can pull that data and we actually analyze it. So the next slides are going to be through the calendar year of our data. There we go. So you can see there's 92, almost 93% of our reported stop data involves traffic stops. And then of that, you can see a breakdown by sex. You'll see there's a little bit of difference because we don't have to report, if someone calls in a DUI and says it's this kind of car, and we stop that kind of car, that was dispatched to us. That's not self-initiated activity. So if a vehicle or pedestrian is involved in some sort of broadcasted, we don't report on that. So all our reports are only on completely self-initiated activity that our officers, when they stop someone or for a vehicle or a pedestrian. We're able to break it down by race, ethnicity, and by sex. So you can see on these slides that broke those down for everyone. Oops. Next is our police reports and our records department. So our officers write a lot of reports. You can see we wrote 7,400 police reports last year for our staff. Once those are reported, our records department, which is currently 2 record staff, actually processes all those reports. They review them, they make sure they have everything that's complete, and then they send them to where they need to be sent and process them. In addition, they also processed over 1,200 other report requests. Some of those are public report requests, discovery requests, or sending reports to other agencies. So they're very busy. Broke these down. A lot of times people want to know what's going on in their neighborhood, so generally those are property-related calls for service. So you can see that on the left. That's broken down by thefts and burglaries. The graph on the right is broken down by the highest number of reports taken. So you can see DHS referrals. So if DHS cross reports to us a report, that's our number 1 report that we get. We had over 500 of those, and then theft reports.
What are the last 2 initials?
VRO and DWS.
Yes.
So violation of restraining order and driving while suspended.
Okay.
It's very small on my screen. So here, breakdown by citations. In 2024, we had a decrease in citations, but we stayed steady in arrests. I think some of the reduce in citations is because we didn't have a full traffic team, and I'll kind of talk about that. We did keep 1 traffic officer on the traffic team all year. But generally we have 3 traffic officers and a sergeant. But due to staffing, we're working on it. As soon as we get people out on training, we'll be back filling our special assignments. Every year, we're required to break down our use of force. So this is you can see on the graph on the right, we had 1,397 arrests, and it breaks down what type of arrests they are. With that, we had 79 documented uses of force or incidents of use of force, but we had 162 use of force reports. So if 3 officers are on scene and they all use force, it's not one report, it's every officer has to write their own individual report. So that's why you see that. We also report on our use of force with vehicle-related uses of force. Not every agency does that, and so then we break it down. You can see of our arrests, only 5.65% involves some sort of use of force. That's very good. When you take out the vehicle-related use of force, we're down to 4.15%, so that's even better. So I should note that use of force is essentially anything other than cooperative handcuffing. So if someone tries to pull away from us when we're trying to take them into custody, or they resist, we have to write a use of force report. So that just shows you kind of the level of detail that we're doing. But of that, you can see we break it down on what kind of use of force we do, the types of use of force. And so of those, 74% were some sort of control hold. So not really use of force per se, but it's actually maybe grabbing onto someone, holding them from pulling away. So it's a very low level of force.
I noticed there was a minimal, I was going to ask you about the canines, and then I saw it.
Yeah, 3. So that's when a canine bites a person. We break out down use of force by race and gender. So you can see those stats right there. Very, very similar on most of them to last year. Now I'm going to break it down just to showcase our different special assignments. So our detective division, they consist of 3 full-time detectives and a detective sergeant. Last year, we promoted one of our detectives to sergeant, and so that vacancy was filled by one of our patrol officers. But our detectives do a lot more than just investigate our crimes here, right? They work on the Clackamas County Major Crimes team. They work on 2 of our detectives were lead detectives on officer-involved shootings somewhere in the county, not in Oregon City. They also partake in other multidisciplinary teams such as human trafficking and the child abuse team. They're also on call 24/7, so they're very busy. Their case management, you can see that they wrote less reports last year, but they had more cases assigned to them. So they had almost 160 cases assigned to them. They submitted 52 cases to the DA's office, and they wrote 17 search warrants. So I'm thankful we didn't have any homicides last year, so that's probably why a lot of our search warrants are down, because in 23, if you remember, we actually had 3 homicides, and so there's a lot of search warrants to go to that. Some of our notable cases last year, one of our officers was trying to take a gentleman into custody, and he, unbeknownst, tried to attack our officer and actually had a knife and tried to stab him in the neck. So that was a big call for our department. And so we brought out the Clackamas County Major Crimes team to investigate that as an attempted murder on our officer. Also, Anthony Wessel, if you remember, he killed his wife in November 2023. In April of this year, he pled guilty to murder. Mason Estabrook, who killed his father in February 23, is still awaiting trial. And then Jamin Fritsch, who killed Kara Taylor in July of 23, is still awaiting trial. Detectives do a lot of other supplemental duties. Detective Wadsworth, he's a polygrapher. They have a lot of different forensic software that they use, and they also do cell phone extractions to help with the cases and the evidence. Our property officer is also our crime scene forensics. She processes crime scene, so this is what she did last year when she responded out to the scene. You'll see IBIS entries. That's if we seize a firearm. She can then go to Portland, she doesn't fire, but we fire the firearm, use the casing, submit it into this, and actually gets a digital fingerprint, and then that fingerprint of that gun can then be used to connect other cases together. So that's one of the things she got trained in last year and certified, and so she's continuing that. Our special investigation team, that consists of 8 officers and 2 sergeants. Their goal is to impact the criminal-related activity involving possession, manufacture, and distribution of controlled substance in and around Oregon City. You can see they're very good at what they do. It was a collateral duty. So what that means is they do that either during our overlaps, their days off, whenever they can. It doesn't impact their normal operations. But you can see they seized over 100 pounds of fentanyl. So without a doubt, I can guarantee they're saving lives within our community and around our community. Just so you know, 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a lethal dose. So that's a lot of people that we potentially saved. Next is our behavioral health unit. Valentina Magia is on the right, and our new case manager, Chelsea Fultz, is on her left. And you just heard Linda Basinger talk about Val going and giving a presentation. That's one of the things that they do is they go out and educate our community and provide training. But with Val and Chelsea, we're now able to have 5-day-a-week coverage and they're also on call for nights and weekends. Our behavioral health model is mirrored by several agencies around us now. So all of our municipal agencies now have some sort of behavioral health embedded in them, and now they actually are also now this year getting a case manager. So we're kind of the pioneer of this, and it's worked, and they're doing a great job. So other agencies are seeing the benefits and doing the same thing we are. So BHU provided 98 training hours, and that was to not just our department, but our city departments, or many other agencies, our school district, local businesses, and church. We reviewed 561 police reports. It was a 15% increase from last year, along with 379 in-person outreach contacts. They're also part of a crisis intervention team. They have 58 clients on that. All of them are chronically homeless. 52 of those 58 live in Oregon City. Our training division was very, very active with all the hiring. And you can see by the numbers we had between non-sworn and sworn, we had nearly 11,000 of training hours. Those training hours are initial onboarding training hours. They're also certificate maintenance training hours. They're also emergency vehicle operations, use of force training, you name it. It's all the training hours put together. So we're training our officers is super important for us, and we're doing a good job at that. As I mentioned, our traffic team, when fully staffed, is comprised of 3 officers and a sergeant, but due to staffing and allocation of resources, we had one that stayed on there full time. So he was very busy, very successful, but a lot of these stats you can see are not only just our traffic team, but traffic in general. But our traffic officers participate in their agency traffic missions, and they do commercial motor vehicle inspections. And then all of our department participates in different grants through ODOT. Some of those grants are cell phone, looking for people using cell phones, DUIs, safety belts, and speed enforcement. With those grants, you can see how those break down and the amount of stops that we did, the amount of cites we did with those grants versus warnings. Our school resource officer, again, normally we have 2. Half of one is funded by the school district, but last year we only had 1, and that was Dave Plummer, who stayed in the school the entire year. It's very important that we have a school resource officer, right? They build a rapport, they make sure we have a safe school. They do a lot of good things there. They coordinate our summer camp, and it's super impressive. I don't know if I've ever seen this before, but our school resource officer was voted by the student body to give the commencement speech last year for the graduation. So it's quite an honor for Dave Plummer to receive that. Our canine team last year consisted of 2 canines for patrol canines, Ronnie and Slate, 1 narcotics canine, Canine Grendel. Canine Coco joined our department in the fall. He got sworn in January with a new handler, Officer Lossley. Canine Slate retired in January, and as we all know, that Canine Grendel unexpectedly passed away in January. So with that, Jason Pohl was selected again to get another dog, and he's actually going down to California on Sunday to pick out a new dog and get certified down there. That dog already comes certified. He just has to do a few tests, and so he'll be certified in California, and then we'll come back and provide more training. So you'll be seeing the new dog soon. We don't know who it is, but he'll be coming to Oregon City probably not in about a week and a half. Again, I mentioned our homeless liaison officer had to be relocated to patrol, but with that, we still have continued monthly coordination meetings with all of our stakeholders. Our patrol continues to provide the outreach when we contact someone who's experiencing homelessness and work with our community partners for housing. We also do cleanup of unauthorized camps. You can see this one was a big one near Beaver Creek in 213. Public Works was trying to do some work on the line there, and they actually had to clean up there. So again, we provided outreach. That was an old camp, so we didn't need to do anything. But in 2024, we spent almost $18,500 for camp cleanups, partnering with a camp CNR reforestation to go clean up when we have unauthorized camps. Should be note that we give 72 hours notice for all occupants. We work with our community partners before and when we're there cleaning up, trying to get them the services. Some of the stuff we come across is drug paraphernalia, human waste, a lot of physical hazards, and then if we receive personal property, we have a place to store it. Our code enforcement team, as you guys know, we were able to add another code enforcement officer in the last budget. We now have 7-day-a-week coverage, and everyone's hired and full staff. Their vision and the goal is to enhance the neighborhood livability and educate residents to resolve violations through voluntary compliance. It's not always the process, but sometimes that is. And they work with our police department for minor crashes, blocking roads, and in limited capacities to promote public safety. This is just a good example of some livability that we were able to change in that neighborhood. Interestingly, they had 2,351 cases. This is the largest number of cases that they've had in 5 years. I think a lot of that has to do with now having 7-day-a-week coverage, but it's a 20% increase from 2023. So that's quite an increase. You can see nearly half of them still involve parking violations, and then health and safety is the next biggest one. Very proud of Ryan Kersey and their code team. In 2023, in April, they saw these shopping carts. They saw this garbage on the side of the road, right? People weren't picking up the carts like they're supposed to, and they took it upon themselves to collect these carts, and pick up the trash. So they picked up last year 480 shopping carts, 88 bags of trash. Since the inception, they picked up 655 carts and 98 bags of trash. So future work may include adopting a local ordinance about shopping carts and hopefully keeping them, making sure businesses do what they need to do to pick them up or keep them on their property. So
Isn't there a company that's supposed to be coming around and picking those up?
yes, they're supposed to be.
That's what I see, yeah. So
There's a lot of stores that actually partner with them, but they're not routinely doing it. So rather than waiting for them to come, our code enforcement officers are out there picking them up, taking them to one of our extra yards, partnering with Public Works, and then we store them there until we can get them back to the store or that company to pick them up. So
I thought some of the stores in Oregon City were putting the transponder thing on it so it can't go off the property.
yeah. I've seen that at Fred Meyer's. I actually watched it on my day off where they weren't trying to leave, they were actually trying to go across the parking lot, but it literally locks up when it hits that area. So yeah, that's one of the things that could be a possibility if the commission's interested of adopting an ordinance. I know other cities have to regulate that and make sure businesses are doing that to help protect, to help keep our city clean.
Health and safety.
Some of the fun things that we get to do is our community outreach and events. We really like to do those. So a lot of those you'll see is our National Night Out or summer camp, but we also did a lot of recruiting. So that picture on the right is we went down to universities, we went up to JBLM. We did a lot of recruiting last year, and I think it paid off. Our summer camp is we put this on, and so about 30 kids get to come learn about the police department, learn about the professionals behind the badge, right? They get to interact with the dogs, do a lot of cool things, and go on some field trips. This has been very successful, and we look forward to continuing this.
How about a summer camp for the commissioners?
Sure, let's do it. You guys are more than welcome. I'll give you the dates. It's pretty fun. We do it right over here at Gardner. They're great hosts for us. Yeah. Citizens Academy, I know the mayor participated in this, but We're actually in our Citizens Academy currently. It's a 10-week free course for citizens that either live or work in Oregon City. They get to learn about all the intricacies of our police department, to see a lot of cool stuff, and it's a pretty good opportunity for people in our community. And National Night Out, that's our bread and butter. That's what we really like to do. It's probably our biggest event. Sorry. And it's a really fun event. I think last year was probably our largest attended event for us, and hopefully we can continue to grow it. But it's a very good time for us to build those relationships with our community. They get to come see us and ask questions and learn about us, and we get to learn about our community. And then finally, Trick or Treat on Main Street. That's Rob Lipke, right? That was his last detail he did. He really loved going down there. We've made it a much larger event. I think the whole downtown has made it a larger event. There's so many kids and families that go down there. It's a great event for us to be a part of. And then finally, so I tried to do it as fast as I could. So future challenges. I think meeting the needs of our city, and especially as the growth of the city, is one of our #1 priorities, right? Our FTEs since 2017, we have gone back and forth with 46 or 47 FTEs since 2017, yet our population, according to PSU, has gone up 9%, right? So to meet the needs, we got to figure out a way to continue to grow our department to meet those needs, and continue to maintain the services that the community expects. Succession planning, we have 6 sworn officers that are eligible to retire in the next 2 years. 3 of those are in a leadership position. And then we're always working on hiring and specifically retention of our officers. So that's all I have, so I can turn it over for questions.
Gentlemen, any questions? Kudos? Well, thank you as always on behalf of all of us for the fantastic job that you all do. And
thank you.
I forwarded to Mr. Kersey an email I received from a person who was stranded on 213, and one of our code folks came and helped them out and waited until they were able to get their car back in service, and they really appreciated that.
That's great. It's an honor for us to serve.
Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
The community survey, the department continues to be highly rated by our citizens, and that's a heck of an effort that we really appreciate, especially since an awful lot of your contacts with people, they're probably not real excited about having that contact, but you and your officers and your leadership team make sure that it's done professionally and with respect to everyone, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Chief Davis. All right, we're going to move on to the item number 7, our consent agenda. We have some questions about item C, so I'd like a motion for approval of A, B, and D.
My question was on D.
Oh, D, sorry. Okay, so excuse me. Let's get a motion for A, B, and C.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda minus D.
Second.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I would note that under item B, I was a little amused by the fact that I know about the axe throwing place, and I'm thinking axe throwing and alcohol in the same. I was like, I said, what could possibly go wrong with that? But, so item number D, we'll just take it up right now.
Okay.
Personal services agreement with Pittman Restaurant Equipment for the Pioneer Community Center kitchen remodel project.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Thomas. So just very quickly, I know that with the services that we provide outside of our city to the city of West Lynn, I know that they reimburse us at least for the cost of the meals, but I was wondering if any of the reimbursement that we receive from the city of West Lynn takes into account the capital needs for projects such as this.
I don't believe that's part of our current IGA. This project is actually funded out of our donation account, so it doesn't come out of the general fund. It comes out of the money that we receive for donations, but that's definitely something to consider as we move forward with further IGAs.
Okay, I appreciate that. I was thinking about that when I was reading this. I know that they, like I said, they pay us for the meal services we provide, but I think maybe the next time this comes before us for the IGA, that we maybe talk about I mean, this is a growing program.
small
This is an
percentage,
essential
yeah,
program.
yeah.
And getting reimbursed for the capital needs as well is something that I think we maybe ought to consider next time. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So can I have a motion for approval of item D?
So moved.
Second. Go ahead. Second by Mr. Mitchell.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell. Aye. Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Kissinger. All right, so next on our agenda is item 8, and we have a public hearing, and we're looking at the second reading of ordinance number 25-1003, Flood Management Overlay District Code Amendments, GLUA 24-030, Legislative File 24-04. Are there any questions by the commission? But I'll go ahead, report, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And we have one person who would like to comment or testify. Mr. Basinger, come on up, please, sir. Nice to see you. Belated Happy New Year.
I'm Ken Basinger, my wife Linda, and I live on First Avenue in Kenema and are thus directly affected by this. I understand that you have no choice but to pass it. All I want to do is put on record my opposition to it and thus retain the possibility of participating in any unlikely future legal action against the passage of it. But I also want to illustrate what it is and what it does. Make sure I get the right one here. This is FEMA's model for the code changes that we're talking about here. And it calls for employing a standard of, quote, no net loss of natural and beneficial floodplain functions. Now, it takes about 30 or 40 pages to say that, or to define what that is. And that's from FEMA. And it refers to a second document, the National Marine Fisheries Biological Opinion from 2016. And it's that big too, and I don't know that anybody has ever actually read it other than me. But I know what it does. No net loss is an absolute, it's zero. And we know the result of it from activity where these rules were enforced against our next door neighbor in 2018. Over 5 yards of rock or concrete introduced into the floodplain area. And they didn't even do it. It was done by the contractor, previous owner of the property, who declined to participate in the mitigation. So our neighbors, out of their pockets, did the environmental study required by this code change. This is it. Cost them about $60,000, and an engineering study for an additional $8,000. Using the principle of zero net loss.
You can have 30 more seconds.
I calculated that the 7 cubic yards of material they brought in would have raised the floodplain, the river level in a flood by 5 10,000ths of an inch. Half the thickness of a human hair. So the absurdity of it
$86,000 they spent on that. Over 7 yards of dirt. And Union Pacific brings
So
in
Ken, you're kind of
rock.
out of time.
Thank you.
Are you wrapping it up?
I am.
Okay.
Union
I gave you
Pacific
30 more
brings
seconds,
in
so.
tons of rock. And I expect the city to call them on that because they're dropping it in what the FEMA map calls the floodplain. And the Union Pacific rail line sits not on Union Pacific property. Union Pacific owns no property in Kenema. It sits on the dedicated right-of-way for First Avenue. So what might be Union Pacific's problem thus becomes Oregon City's problem. And next time we see them bringing in carloads of rock, expect another call. We called them last year, called code enforcement last year. We were informed that the city can't do anything about that. So contemplate that, please, and thank you.
Is that true?
It's true that we were told that.
I don't know what the different right-of-ways and the whatever easements and whatever I don't know the answer to that.
Did we find out, please? So we can respond to our community member. Okay, I don't see any further testimony, so I will go ahead and close the public hearing and ask for deliberation by the commission. Go ahead.
Thank you. So what is the status of this, given that FEMA has decided to take its name off of this? This is something that I had read about in the news that the administration was pulling back.
I don't believe this is not an administrative, this is a judge order that was based on litigation. So this is a judicial requirement rather than an administrative requirement. So I think they're a little bit different. I agree. If this was being driven by the federal government at this time, they could probably pull it back, but this was a settlement agreement based on existing litigation from a judge.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, can I have a motion for the second reading?
I'll make a motion for a second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We have the second reading of ordinance 25-1003.
Ordinance number 25-1003, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City adopting amendments to Oregon City Municipal Code, Chapter 17.42, Flood Management Overlay District.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriffin.
Aye.
Motion
And
passes.
again, I know we don't have a whole lot of choice in this, but if the Union Pacific is dumping rock in the right-of-way of the old First Avenue and they don't own that, then it seems to me that we need to find out what's going on with that. So let's move on to item number 9. We have general business. We have the Thimble, and this time I didn't say the wrong thing, Thimble Creek Market Assessment and Development Scenarios Discussion.
Actually, you did.
Did it?
Thimble Creek.
Okay, well, that's not how I spell thimble, but that's okay. Thimble Creek. Is that you and Mr.
I think
Graham?
I spelled it correctly, but
Okay,
I'll have to
all
go
right.
back and double check that. Good evening, Aquila Hurd-Ravitch and James Graham. We're going to co-present this. So we were here on February 19th at a regular meeting, and we gave an update about this Thimble Creek project, which is a grant that we received from Metro to do some industrial site readiness study. And so at that time, our consultants that we had on board presented their findings, and we are requesting, staff is requesting that 2 commissioners volunteer to work with staff to refine the alternatives and kind of be a liaison to the rest of the commission and to the property owners in the Thimble Creek area. So at that time, at that meeting, not all of you were present, and you wanted to kind of table the discussion until everybody was here. So that's why we're back, and James is going to tell you a little bit about what we're looking for.
I think I was the only one missing.
Yes.
And I had a discussion with, I attended a briefing with Planning Community Development Director about this, and so go ahead, Mr. Graham.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. James Graham, Economic Development Manager. And what we are specifically asking is that the Commission appoint 2 representatives from your colleagues to work with staff in a variety of ways to enhance the communication between the champions, as we call them, and the rest of their colleagues and their colleagues on the Commission, and to be acquainted with the challenges that represent this plan and this development effort. This effort has been in the works for a very long time, and it is now, we feel it's time now to work to see if we can move this along. In addition, we're asking that the champions, along with staff, engage property owners, some of the property owners, particularly the major ones, with regard to understanding what's possible with the property they own and what their intentions are. And then work with staff to draft some policy options with regard to identifying sources of funding and exploring potential of establishing public-private partnerships to mitigate the challenges that impact the plan. And then, of course, provide recommendations to the City Commission on further action. In addition to what I've just said, we're asking also that the City Commission adopt via resolution the Thimble Creek Industrial Land Readiness Strategic Plan in the spring of 2025. So that's what we're asking.
So I feel like I'm in Groundhog's Day, and Aquila knows why, because I worked on this very project when I was in Aquila's place back in the, when I worked for the city. So I am extremely familiar with the land, the property owners, many of which who still have not moved forward with what they thought they wanted to do. So which one other of you would like to join me in being a champion for this particular project? Oh, everybody's raising their hand all at once. I can see that.
So I had voiced an interest in this the last time, and I know Commissioner Mitchell had as well, and so I am willing to defer to the both of you so long as you work on your spelling of this area.
Yeah, well, okay. So which one of you would like to do it?
Well, I am fine if Commissioner Mitchell and the mayor would like to move ahead.
Want to? Okay, all right.
That's fine.
The M's have it. And when will you want us to do the resolution? Do we have that in the packet now? I didn't see that.
No, and there's no resolution now.
Okay.
Part of what we want to work on with you and Commissioner Mitchell is what options do we want to present? And that would be part of that resolution. So that will come a little bit later. So we'll reach out to the both of you and set up some times and start getting to work.
I'm sure that some of the property owners are going to say, oh, you're back. I'll just say I never left. How about that? Okay. Do we need to do anything else?
No, we're good.
All right. Let's move on to, I'm going to go ahead and change the order here real quickly because I think item number C can be taken care of fairly easy. So I'd like to deal with the funding of the city-sponsored public events program. We have a report.
Yes. If you recall, Commissioners, back in June of 2023, you passed the city's biennium budget for fiscal year 23-25. Consequently, the city's economic development budget was passed along with that, and you developed or provided a separate program, a line item that added the city-sponsored public event to our budget, to the Economic Development Department's budget. So, as is normal, with the close of the 2023-25 biennium as we approach June 30th, 2025, the balances within that program are dwindling down, whereby now we have about $4,600 remaining at the end of the fiscal year of by the end of the fiscal year June 30th, 2025. Therefore, we're asking for replenishment of that program, and we've laid out options for you in the staff report with regard for your consideration. Approved funding from the TLT funds for the city-sponsored public event, approved funding from the general fund for the city-sponsored public event program, approved funding from both the TLT funds and the general fund for the city-sponsored public event program, or do not provide funding at all for the program. We're seeking $50,000 for fiscal year 24-25.
I was just going to ask you the time frame, which I thought would be 24-25.
And just to clarify too, so this is really kind of it's just a timing issue with the fiscal year that we do relative to the grant cycle and when the funding's needed. So let's just say the commission approves $50,000 tonight, we'll advertise it, if there's, and then we're going to include this $50,000 in the budget for beginning July 1 of 25 for the next biennial budget. So it's not like this is $50,000 for the next 3 months and then another, so think of this as the 25 summer money, right?
Right.
And the other part of this is, let's say we approve $50,000 tonight, we put it out, we get some applications, they get approved, but none of the events, like if there's one event on June 15th and all the others are in July. I mean, so this is part of, I just want you to know, like we're considering this the summer money, and we'll deal with the accounting of it on the back end when we do the budget, if that makes sense.
Michael, question?
No, I brought this up just because of that timing issue, and I had been approached by 2 individuals wishing to apply and hopefully putting on events. So to me, because it's even in the program requirements that it attracts tourism, to me it makes perfect sense to take it out of the transient lodging tax, and that would be my recommendation. And the other thing is I hope we can advertise this tomorrow and get back on. Last year, we accepted applications up until the end of March, reviewed them the first week of April, and then they went to the commission the next week, and the funding was issued on the 24th of April, so on a real tight time frame. And I know there's at least one event that is on an extremely tight time frame and wants to apply. So my preference would be to do it out of the TLT funding and do it right away and get back on the same cycle as last year.
I agree with you. I've also been, had a couple of people contact me as well concerning about the whole timing issue. So, gentlemen, any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve $50,000 from the transient lodging tax funds to support our city-sponsored public events for summer of 2025 and publicize the program immediately.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I think we're good. All right.
And thank you, Scott, for your work on that.
Yes, thank you so much too, because I was worried about the whole timing issue. Okay, so we're going to move back to item number B. So 335 Warner Milne Sidewalk Street Tree Removal Project. I didn't know we had a staff file called TREE, but I guess we do. 24-00065, NROD 25-00001, and we have planning and community development and public works. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to just kind of introduce the process. And the reason why you didn't know we had that land use item is because these don't typically appear before you. But in this case, It was, so the tree removal policy that applies to city staff who are going to remove trees in public, either on public private property or in the public right of way, have to go through kind of another level of review. And there's triggers in there. So the first trigger is if a certain species of tree has a minimum diameter size, then it goes through the review. And then if it meets an even higher diameter size, so 40 inches, then it would come to the city commission. Otherwise, it's a staff review, and we put out public notice and give people a chance to comment on it. And in this particular case, the tree is just under the threshold that would normally come to you. It's about 36 to 37 inches in diameter, and the threshold is 40 inches. So we kind of kicked it up. We don't typically do this, but we kicked it up to the next level because there are several different conflicting priorities. There's a sidewalk infill project, which is one of your priorities, and there's also preserving tree canopy, another priority. So we decided that we wanted some input from the city commission before staff made that decision. So that's kind of the process that we're at. And then Dana, the Public Works Director, will talk more about the project itself.
All right, good evening. I'm Dana Webb, Public Works Director, and so tonight, as Aquila mentioned, we're here to provide you options. So we have not included a staff recommendation tonight because we do have conflicting priorities with this project. So here on the screen, you'll see a photo of the tree in a leaf off state, so you can kind of see how large it is. And then a little bit later in the presentation, I have a similar photo in a leaf scenario, so you can see that as well. So the project that's happening is our 2025 pavement maintenance utility project. And as we lay out our paving projects, they often include ADA ramp improvements, which requires a subcontractor that does concrete work. And so when we already have that kind of work in a project, adding sidewalks becomes much easier. We get a cost benefit by adding those sidewalks in. And so that is how this option came about. So here is an aerial view of the Warner-Milne corridor. So you've got Malala Avenue on the right, and then on the left, on the lower side, is Beaver Creek Road. And so those two red circles are the two locations within that segment where sidewalk is missing. One of those is adjacent to the PGE property. At the time they redevelop that property, they will be asked to install that sidewalk. So that leaves the one remaining piece with the large tree that you can see there on the right-hand side. And that piece of sidewalk is a part of a TSP project. So we have identified the need for it. So again, that second piece is adjacent to the Oregon City Church of Christ, and we approached them to discuss the tree and the sidewalk with them. So here is the photo of that tree in a full leaf state. We had a full tree assessment done by a certified arborist. They noted it as a 37-inch diameter white oak in good health. The canopy spread is about 45 feet. It does have a moderate lean to the south over Warner-Milne Road, and the tree trunk is located 27 inches away from the existing curb. So too close to the curb to try and squeeze a sidewalk between that curb and the tree. And really, they noted in that arborist report that the tree, in an option with a curb-tight sidewalk, obviously the tree would need to be removed. If we looked at an option to meander the sidewalk around the tree, because of the grade between the curb and the church and providing an ADA accessible sidewalk, it does impact the property, and it also would place the sidewalk still within the drip line of the tree.
So I've got a little bit more on that here later. So with the conclusion of the tree assessment, we began coordination with the property owner. And the property owner or a representative of the property owner is here tonight. So Steve Partlow, representing the Oregon City Church of Christ, is here if you have questions for him. So in April of 2024, we initiated that first contact with the property owner when we knew that this was a roadway we would be paving. In May, we held an on-site meeting to discuss options, and the property owner continued to be open to these discussions. So after the arborist report was complete, we shared the two options that we had identified. Option one was removal of the street tree for construction of curb-tight sidewalk with off-site mitigations. So we have proposed, in the event we move forward with the tree removal, mitigation of that tree as required by the code. Or option two, a meandering of the sidewalk. And in an email in November of 2024, the property owner shared that their leadership team decided on option one, removal of the tree. And so those correspondence is included in your package. So I'll show you the two options and what those look like. So this is an aerial view. We've got Warner Milne Road. You can see the drip line and the canopy of the tree there. And so extending that curb-tight sidewalk goes, right through that tree and would not allow that tree to be preserved. And then we've got option two. Here we go. Option two, so this shows taking that sidewalk up onto the property. That would bring the sidewalk within 20 feet of their existing structure, and the grading necessary to construct the sidewalk would require impacts within 10 feet of their structure. And that's what would be required to provide an ADA accessible sidewalk along this frontage with an attempt to save the tree. Now that tree assessment did note that even this meandering sidewalk, we would need to do essentially some underground site investigations to understand how far out the roots of this tree go, because even this meandering sidewalk may require the removal of the tree. So until we kind of take that next step forward, we wouldn't know for sure if we could preserve the tree with this meandered sidewalk. Yes.
Oh, proposed daylight limits, what does that mean?
Essentially, how far back do we have to grade before we catch existing ground? So how much disturbance of the surface area?
Okay.
Is there more?
Yes. So I just wanted to also share, in the event we move forward with an option to remove the tree, we have worked with our Parks Department and identified locations and types of trees that would be appropriate for mitigation. And so that's what this slide shows, is those mitigation trees. And then really just a slide with your options. So removal of the street tree for construction of curb-tight sidewalk with the off-site mitigation as proposed. An option where you could provide direction on different mitigation for the proposed tree removal, or an option to deny the tree removal and not move forward with a sidewalk installation.
So I guess I have two questions. Was there any comprehension or understanding by our staff about the significance of the white oaks in the state of Oregon? They are basically an endangered species, and the state of Oregon is trying to encourage white oaks to be preserved in addition to them being replanted. And I'm just aware of that because there is a group in the Willamette Valley that's dealing with white oaks and trying to make sure that they are preserved. I think there's a third option, or maybe even there's a fourth option that could possibly be considered, which is having the sidewalk come up to the drip line, making a curb ramp there, going around the tree, not trying to mitigate any sidewalk or touching it, and then break bringing the sidewalk back beyond the drip line on the other side, going back up. Because I think that, there's, several ways to do that. I think the other thing is that I don't think a cedar tree is a replacement for an oak tree. That's just my opinion. They're not really the same species. We do have, not as many oaks around as we used to, and so I'm cognizant of that particular issue. Staff, commissioners, do you have any questions before I ask for the public to have comments? Okay. Good. Go ahead, Michael.
When I think about the topography of Oregon City, there's a lot of places in Oregon City where the sidewalks are much steeper than that 1 in 20 that's called for by ADA. So are we required to abide by that, or is that, it would be nice if we could?
We are required.
And that's federal law, or is that connected to funding, or why is that a requirement? Because as I said, I mean, there's steep sidewalks all over this town.
I think as if you do something brand new, you have to meet the requirement. If it's something that's pre-existing, it can stay as it is until we start messing around with it. That's my understanding.
I know that's what I've always been told, but,
yeah, no,
but why?
Yeah, I can't answer the why. I just know if it's pre-existing, it stays the way it is. And yeah, go ahead.
It's because when the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, there was a lot of uproar over the fact that it was an unfunded mandate, and so there were exceptions made for it to be able to pass, for certain projects not to be completed if there was a reason presented why, and a potential project in the future if further action were to be taken.
It was quite controversial. All right, thank you, staff. We'll be seeing you in a little bit again. So I'm going to call people up two at a time, if that would be acceptable. That way we can make sure we hear everybody. So Samantha Wolf and James Nicita. You can take the right or the left, whichever you like. Did Samantha leave? Or did she go out?
I think she left after the NRC.
Okay, go ahead, James.
Yeah. Before I begin, I sent something to Jacob to, thank you very much, Jacob. I want to give maybe an option 3A, if I may. And what it would involve is not building a sidewalk on the north side for that gap, but instead constructing a high-grade, high-quality crosswalk at Danielson Drive so that people on the north side could cross the street and make that last couple of 100 feet to Malala on the south side, so you really wouldn't need the sidewalk on the north side. There's a couple of serendipitous things going on right now that I think might help in that regard, and I want to bring those to your attention in case you're interested. I learned today that a couple years ago when the Cam Street development project was before you, there was a whole discussion about the lack of connectivity between Warner Milne and those neighborhoods north of Warner Milne through Cam Street and Hughes Street, for example. Now, what you have here, this is the connectivity map. I've done a screenshot of that map that shows, desired connectivity. One of them is extending, the red is trails, the black is road, and they're kind of general, so, theoretically, those connections could be made anywhere along that stretch. But it's, the other thing that's kind of serendipitous is PGE has apparently bought those properties and is in their planning processes right now. So that, to me, what that does is kind of open the door to kind of taking a broader view of the problem and solving it at a broader view whereby, hopefully you could work with PGE to establish some kind of connectivity off of Camp Street and/or off of Hughes Street, maybe a pedestrian path, arcing around the outer perimeter of their properties from the south end of Cam down to Warner Milne, so that all the people in that neighborhood who might want to shop at this, go to Safeway or that whole shopping center on the other side of Warner Milne could use that pedestrian path to have that access. And so in doing so, you would want to have, a high quality crosswalk, maybe with the flashing yellow lights right by the library on John Adams there. So you wouldn't really be building a crosswalk to save a tree. You'd be building a crosswalk for a number of purposes, including that connectivity and the tree, and saving the tree as well, so that people could just make that last stretch to Malala along the south side, so you wouldn't have to kill the tree with a sidewalk on the north side. So thank you.
I just want to say quickly for the record, which we received, we have comments in writing from Wendy Marshall, Carla Laws regarding this topic, Emily Lisberg, and Betsy Jordana Edhelm. So I've got, Betsy, you're here. So come on up, and also Wendy. So you can take the right or the left, whichever one you want.
Should we sit together?
No, you're speaking separate. You're speaking separately. I just said I would call people up two at a time.
Okay.
So go right ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Betsy Jordan Edholm, and I reside here in Oregon City. Honorable Mayor McGriff, City Commissioners, Natural Resources Committee members, Planning Manager Walter, Public Works Director Webb, and City Manager Conkle. I am here tonight to share my thoughts about the possible removal of Oregon City's historic, ancient, native white oak tree on Warner Milne Road. And I live on Warner Milne Road between here and the tree. I'm hoping the property owner will highly consider a curbed sidewalk around this tree, and please consider putting in place a curved sidewalk like the ones installed around trees in Tualatin and Malala. Another good example of curved sidewalks is right here in Oregon City at the Rose Farm Museum that were placed around the old pen trees on the sidewalk at that location. I also urge you to modify the tree code to save an Oregon historic tree, an Oregon City historic and ancient 187-year-old white oak tree, and also so we can plan on preserving more historic trees for our historic city in the future. This majestic tree has removed more than 48 pounds of carbon dioxide each year and releases oxygen to help mitigate climate change. It also provides much needed shade in the summer for all living beings, including me, an active walker in this community. For such a hardworking city tree, I believe it deserves to be saved. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Wendy Marshall, and I live in Oregon City. And I want to thank the commissioners, mayor, and staff for letting us give input on this, even though you didn't need to. I did read the materials that were provided in the agenda packet, and I did have some questions, and I apologize if I missed anything. Just found out about this today, this afternoon. In the correspondence, it looked like basically the landowner was just given minimal information. We have two options. Which one do you want to save a tree? There was no description of the importance of the tree or anything. It just said save or sidewalk around the tree. And then the landowner came back and said, I want to do the option that removes the tree. Hopefully there was more discussion than what I saw in the packets. And also, I didn't see anything for the option where the sidewalk would be in an easement. I didn't see anything discussing negotiation of compensation for an easement, which would be standard for a capital improvement project. Negotiate compensation for the easement, maybe that would have prompted them to try to save the tree. And I wondered if the homeowner or the landowner gave any reason why they chose that. It was just the easy option, maybe not knowing how important the tree was. And I'm thinking since the sidewalk along PGE is going to be funded by PGE, maybe that frees up a little bit of money to put towards compensation or some other workaround for the tree. And also maybe it can just be delayed. Mr. Nacita talked about maybe some larger options that are looking for the future and not rush into this tree removal. We could do the street surfacing, and I appreciate what Dana said about trying to do it all together. That makes sense. A couple of options that I was thinking of were to possibly reduce the travel lane width. I don't know how big the right-of-way or pavement is here. I know it's constricted, so I'm thinking if we could look at reducing the travel lane widths. You could maybe bring the sidewalk in closer to the center line. You could reduce its width to 5 or even 4 feet. You could raise the elevation so it goes up over the roots. And this would also create traffic calming to minimize speeding cars if that's a problem here. Another one.
It is.
I figured it was.
Warner Milne's a speedway.
Yeah. So another one would be to leave the bike lane, transition the sidewalk, the pedestrians into the bike lane and then back up, put some candlestick reflective barriers, signage and marking, but I don't feel like that feels as safe as trying to squeeze the sidewalk in by reducing the travel lanes. And I believe for mitigation in the parks, I would like to see possibility of mitigating the trees on this property or somewhere along that strip of road, possibly on the property, and then record covenants that ensure that the trees, even though they're on private property, would be maintained and taken care of for the future. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have Dee Dee Dahlstrid and Jackie Hammond-Williams.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. I appreciate for all your work and involved in this, and I also appreciate the opportunity to come up. My name is Dee Dee Dahlstrid. I've lived in this neighborhood for over 50 years. I'm passing around an article that is prepared and ready to send in. It's a rough article. It can change. I twisted it in a very positive manner that we're trying to work with our property owners. A new cycle provision may require removal of the tree, but also provide opportunity to showcase most of the beautiful oaks in front of a well-attended city church. The tree is nearly perfect in form and about 5 foot in diameter. I didn't get out and measure it, but that would be somewhat consistent with a 37-inch diameter, which is 2 and 3 inches off a triggering point. I have a feeling that we should start changing some of our trees and when they need to be pulled over, because this tree is 187 years old at 37 inches in diameter at a 0.05 growth rate. That makes it significant, and we shouldn't let it get to this point. It will be like the swimming pool tree that was removed. It was a 300-year-old oak and a 150-year-old black oak. That raised a heck of a lot of concern and rampage amongst our citizens for months afterwards. and it required a good article. This tree could require a good article also. It could showcase us as working with our private owners or not. I really felt, in reading through this, the Church of Christ, the Church of Christ Church, the Church of Christ Church, celebrates the facility as you come in. It's noticeable when you come in that they use that as a marker, I would assume, on both directions. The problem, what we're doing is, did we go to the church and explain the significance and the importance of white oaks, that they're native? Did we show them a rendered drawing of what it would look like from a street appeal? They gave them one line drawing from the top only. The correspondence I saw in the package, which I read the whole entire thing, I did not see that they met and discussed this on site with the owners and or the leadership group that makes these decisions. It looked pretty cut and dry. 2 emails, yes or no, option 1, option 2. Option 1 was removal. We always give option 1, removing the tree. Why isn't that not the last option, in my opinion? We've stressed this before, let's stress it again. Let's go to a property owner, tell them, you know, this is a really significant tree. We can bring a sidewalk up and around. It would require an easement on your property, but we will foot the bill. This is what it would look like. It's our responsibility to put that in, and let's landscape it with other native plants around it. We could put our sign on that heritage tree and say that this is an honored tree. It would make the sidewalk more interesting. It would make our city more interesting. You have a couple of examples that were sent to you. Tualatin kicks out into the road. They use it as both deterrence for traffic. Malala suspended a sidewalk just for the length of that whole tree. And so you started with the sidewalk. I guess I'm gonna have to just walk alongside the road until the sidewalk clips up again. Our Rose City Farm showed a beautiful example of giving an impervious surface on how to still supply the tree with the nutrients it needs and still be able to repair and move it. That one bumps up and down also. I really think we need to sit down and sweeten our pie and show the landowners how we as a city cherish these trees. It will set an example in our town. We could twist it beautifully, or option 3, no sidewalk. That was not even mentioned to the owners. They might say, oh geez, but we really kind of like a sidewalk, but we just can't remove the tree to do so. Well, I think Jim Nacita's third option was a darn smart one. I wish I had thought of it. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I went over like I usually do.
Thank you. Jackie?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Jackie Williams.
Yeah, red light.
Sorry. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Jackie Hammond-Williams, a resident of Oregon City. I'm very unprepared. I found out about this today. I had a very busy day, and I can't believe that I am here in 2025 begging you to not cut a tree down. I was part of a group that did a concept plan for the South Side sidewalks on Holcomb in the early 90s, when we registered that these big old trees, when we're putting sidewalks in, need to be preserved. So we did this concept plan. We had a big charrette. Lots of people came. Everyone was can't think of the word, but everybody wanted these old trees kept. This tree was here before, or it was a sapling probably, when the Europeans arrived. So it is part of our history in this city. I come from Europe, obviously from Britain. The last place I lived, there was a 700-year-old tree right opposite me. In Europe, in England, we do our darndest to keep these old trees. We don't cut them down because they're awkward, because we've got to go around them. It's too much money. It's this, it's that. It's really about time that we realize that this is our heritage. We need these trees for climate change. how are we going to impress on the youth, the up-and-coming young people in this city if they just see that the city's just cutting down these trees? They have no value. This has immense value for humans, for the environment, for wildlife, and yes, it should be planted around. Make it a feature, have it interpreted, you know, have a sign so people understand the value of it. We have one in Park Place Park that's almost 300 years old, and we've done our darndest to preserve that tree. It has history. I mean, if only they could speak, you know? So I really don't have any great pearls of wisdom. I'm just begging you to really look at this and not cut this tree down. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I add one more thing?
Sure.
I always have something. Also, this is a native tree, and back when we were discussing Myers Road, they were going to remove 47 oak trees, and they said they would replace them with 47 oak trees because mitigation on that project was 1-to-1. They did plant oaks, but they're red oaks. They're not Oregon white oaks. We need to, if we remove an Oregon white oak, and we need to stress this maybe, even in our development mitigation, if you remove a native white oak or a native tree of that caliber, you have to mitigate it with the same tree. We have plenty of parks that could stand plenty of oaks with lots of room for them. Thank you.
You're welcome. So there's a few more people in the audience, so if you didn't fill out a slip and you want to come up and say something, this is your opportunity. Please feel free.
Thank you so much for having us on the agenda.
Oh, don't talk before you get up there. Sorry. Got to be on the record.
Thank you so much for having us on the agenda.
You should push the button there.
Push the button, yes.
Thanks.
I should know how to work a mic. I so appreciate everything that, I was on the Zoom and I was hearing what everybody was saying, and I love the passion for this tree. And the one thing that I didn't hear was, I don't know about you, but I grew up learning how to respect my elders, right? So that tree is an elder. That's one of our elders. And I spent years in the tourism marketing field, and we didn't just market, we didn't do tourism marketing for businesses only or lodging only. We did it for the whole thing, including the trees. We even marketed a tree that is in Gladstone that was a heritage tree, right? So I'm just here to say we gotta be an example to our citizens and also to other, other cities and counties, and just be an example that we respect our elders. And that's what I wanted to say. And we should do all that we can to make sure that the tree survives another 100 years. Thank you.
Yeah, so anyway, she didn't say it, but that's Ray Gordon, resident of Oregon City. Anybody else?
Is there a representative from the property owner here?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Steve Partlow. I am on the leadership committee. I am an elder / pastor / shepherd, retired postal worker, and now a volunteer basketball coach at Columbia Christian Schools. My wife was born in Oregon City. I moved here a month before we got married in 1979. I've been a member of this congregation since 1977 and do not have an emotional attachment to the tree. That being said, it was the city that came to us and proposed putting in the sidewalk and improving our driveway to get into our facility, and we thought that was a great idea. They, as is pointed out, gave us two options, and we didn't like the idea of building a long sidewalk around the tree and cutting into our property and basically giving our property to the city, so we decided we'll take the tree out. We did not know any of the history of the tree or anything. It's just been there since the building was built, I think in 1967 or 68. That all being said, the church doesn't need a sidewalk in front of the building. That's it. If you want to widen or make our curbs, our driveways nicer, we'll still take that, but we don't need a sidewalk in front of it. So I can say to you tonight, just leave the tree, forget the sidewalk, and we'll clean up the mess. Every time the wind blows and the ice comes, we'll clean it up.
Why are you calling it a mess?
Oh, well, you know, when the winds come through and everything, I was just up there. I don't normally walk through that part of the area, but because of this meeting, I walked through, and there's a lot of branches and stuff that fall. And my concern has always been safety, as far as cars driving by and a branch breaks down and hits a car, or hits somebody walking, you know, through the property or something. So that's always been my major concern about the tree. And given the type of tree it is, its branches tend to be a little more brittle at the top and everything. And you know, that could be a problem. We don't let the children play out front there or anything, try to keep them back in a play area that we designed. But, you know, that's been my issue, is just safety. And, you know, we've been there since 67, 68, and we've never needed a sidewalk, and we still don't need a sidewalk there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Steve.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, well, there's two people in the audience who might want to say something, so going. You don't want to say anything? Yes. I see you nodding, and so that's why I'm giving you the chance. Patty, you want to say anything? Okay. We don't have anybody else who wants to speak on this, so it's back to the commission, and I'm going to take a little bit of and say that I need a 5-minute break. So we are going to take one right now. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes. discussion? So commissioners, where do you want to go with this? I will just do a little bit of history. So if you look at old aerials, we have some, or had some that go back to the 40s and 50s before this area is really developed. And in doing some research myself, I discovered that this hilltop area took a long time to annex into the city. It wasn't part of the city when the city was initially formed, and slowly but surely kind of came up the hill. So sometime in the 40s or 50s, early 40s, is when this area probably came into the city of Oregon City. But that oak tree is probably one of the last remnants of what the landscape looked like. It was very heavily forested, not only with oaks, but fir trees and all sorts of others. And then people obviously planted fruit trees and things. But I think one of the best examples is kind of what the way that Singer Creek Park looks, and then also you have the cemetery area, and that's basically what this area looked like in the past. So we know that, and I did talk with our community development director that when PGE comes in, if you go by that property that they purchased, there are a substantial number of trees on that property, and I know that they want to use it for a laydown yard, but what can we do to preserve trees that are going to be outside of where they want to develop? We haven't seen a plan yet, but it's another area that has been basically untouched. So there is some precedent, and we did have a situation a few years ago where there was a twin fir tree sitting on the corner of Warren, Milne, and Molalla that somehow or another got taken down, and shouldn't have, because it was part of the original design review that I worked on myself, and they were able to mitigate not having to plant a lot of trees on their property because of that. But I understand what Mr. Partlow was saying about a little bit of safety. I am and my neighbor are a caretaker of a 10-foot citywide alley with at least 5 major maple trees. And yes, they do drop leaves, and yes, I do spend a lot of time raking them, but the benefits for me personally, in terms of shading my house on the south side, and believe it or not, in that last big nasty storm we had, those weren't the trees that dropped. It was the trees elsewhere around them that were dropping, not these big maples or the oaks. So who wants to start? Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you very much. So cutting to the chase, I can't support any decision that would involve the removal of the tree or jeopardizing its health. I don't see a reason to remove it. And furthermore, I actually have some concern that this tree doesn't meet the diameter threshold that normally would come to us. Given its size and its age, that surprises me a little bit, and I'd actually like to revisit what our tree code actually calls for us to be able to have input on tree removal.
You mean something to do with age and or?
Age and or diameter. I think both of those are really important factors to look at when considering removal of trees. So that's where I'm at. I can't support anything that would jeopardize the health of the trees, certainly not removing it.
Rocky, any comments?
Yeah, but they're moot at this point, sort of. I guess one of the things, and I don't know if I'm going to be talking about the same tree that you mentioned, still to this day, and it could have been, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, but the giant tree that was just a block away from this one at the old, what was the Bank of the West.
Right.
And they tore the bank down and rebuilt the building on the parking lot. I drive by there so many times every day, and every time I do, I think about that tree. It was massive. It was amazing. And I can't believe we let that happen. I think we have, this comes up enough that we need to start really thinking about it. I looked at all the options, and they all were horrible. Essentially, none of the options have great, a benefit to them. But the things I think we need to think about is, it's one thing to say a meandering sidewalk and then to see what in reality that means. And sometimes we've done it good, and sometimes we've really screwed it up. But I was kind of shocked at the amount of property that it was going to take to meander around this tree. So we have to see those visuals. We've had, I guess, some successes at Rose Farm. We had disastrous, where I kind of fought the sidewalk changes in front of the Stevens Crawford house, and museum because we rerouted the sidewalk, killed both trees anyway, and now we have a rerouted sidewalk that looks ridiculous. But then at the same time.
Did trees get put back? Did trees get put back?
No, well, there's trees in there. Yeah,
Okay.
there's trees
I
in the
thought
well,
there were, but there's.
they're little dinky trees,
Yeah,
and the
there's-
sidewalk goes, way the heck around them.
There's stick trees, yeah.
But then you have other examples, like today where I drive down, you drive down this street right here, pass by the Evangelical Church, where the sidewalk goes in, 6 feet, 5 feet, because there's a whole line of those beautiful trees. And thank goodness, but I'm sure at that point, the church said, we want these trees and we want to save them. And they probably worked to save them. So I'd like to think about a couple things in the future, how we deal with, the situations where we do the meandering sidewalks and know that when we're doing them, there's some consistency to them. So they're just not random and that we are assured somehow that we might actually save the trees by doing it. The other thing that bothers me about this one is, and I was even going to say, you know what, if they cut down the tree, we'll then continue the street trees all the way down that block. And yes, the church might lose a little bit of property, but we're going to replant that tree on the site and multiple trees in order. I understand the general concept of mitigating off-site, but to plant 2 or 3 trees in a park that has a crap ton of trees and take the only tree out of a street frontage that is a massive tree, it's just not, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's not even common sense. So I think we need to think about that in a little different way. And, we all love the history of this town, and every time we take one of these trees down, it's going to be less and less. I was kind of shocked when they had to remove the tree out in front of in the new high school, because that was a major deal. So I think, I don't want to be driving around Oregon City 5-10 years from now and not see any of those trees that I've seen my whole life there. And there's some big ones coming. I've heard rumors of some major trees that certain property owners are considering taking down that would shock people. And so I hope we have more conversations about how to approach it, because definitely the public has this in their radar, and we need to as well.
Adam?
Well, first, I appreciate the foresight of staff to bring this to us. Even though the current code doesn't require that, and I agree with Commissioner Wilson in that we have to revisit that, but I appreciate them bringing it to us nonetheless, recognizing that this is something that we all care about. And knowing my colleagues up here, and obviously knowing my own opinions, I don't think it was ever a possibility that this was something that we were going to bless, the removal of this tree. And so I appreciate all of the public comments that we received. And I would assure them that they are reflected in the views of the people who are sitting on the dais. So I love the idea of a meandering sidewalk, but given the information that was presented, that further investigation could make it so that it's not feasible and that a tree removal would be required anyway, something that makes it less attractive. And so I appreciate the representative from the property, and I would be fine just leaving it as it is for now. And I think that we can revisit it for other parts of that corridor, because it is important to have those complete streets and being ADA compliant. But for now, it's working, and given that there are no other alternatives that can totally ensure that we are going to be able to save this tree, I would just prefer to let it be.
Michael?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said, and thinking about the cost benefit, and I'm not talking about monetary cost, I'm talking about the psychic cost of losing that tree compared to the benefit of the sidewalk. So I can't moving the tree. I don't think the meandering sidewalk makes sense when it's that much of a meander. I mean, how many times have you seen in a park a beautiful meandering sidewalk and then the dirt path where people cut across? I understand for mobility challenged people, that is a little more difficult to step down and walk in the bike lane, but that's what most people are going to do. They're not going to meander up and around where we would just be wasting money to do that. It's too long, it's too far up the hill, so that doesn't work. I agree with Commissioner Wilson's comments, and I agree with what Commissioner Smith said about a line of trees. I think we need to revisit that whole program. I've objected to fee in lieu back to my days on the Planning Commission. That should be a way far down the list option. And in terms of mitigation, I think has already been said, planting more trees in a park nowhere visibly near where this tree is coming out of is in no way mitigation. And if that's what our code allows, we really need to look at it. Mitigation, whenever possible, needs to happen at the site where the tree is removed. And in addition to the size and age that you were talking about, I think we do need to call out white oaks in particular as needing a different level and a white oak for white oak.
Well, natives are pretty critical.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we need to look at the whole mitigation part of our code, and let's just leave well enough alone.
Well, I think I agree with all of you. I think that if I was in staff shoes, I wouldn't have wanted to make that decision. So thank you for throwing it our way, because that's why we get paid the big bucks here. So, you know, we're required to make these decisions. So thank you for bringing it. And if you have any further down the line in the future, please feel free, because that's what we're here for. I think that the people that spoke made some comments. I think, again, it's not do as I say, you know, not as I do, and we have to set the example. And I think this is just one minor example that we can show that this is important and we need to keep this. You were talking about trees, so there's a giant sequoia on Malala Avenue next to the green grocer that I have talked to the person that's, I don't know if he owns the building, but I don't know if he owns, anyway, he's concerned about the tree damaging his roof. And I said, yes, I get it. Is there some other way that we can mitigate that? That tree is huge. I mean, and I don't know what the issue, I mean, I know the issue, but I don't know how common are these sequoias in this area. I mean, it may be fairly unique. I know there might be a few down in one of our parks, but I think 10 people might be able to get their arms around it. That's on private property. And I've just cautioned him. I just said, you know, before you do anything, come in and talk to the city, because there may be other options. But I think we need to leave the tree. I think there are some other options that were mentioned by community members and others that we can look at to try to make sure that we're ADA compliant. But, you know, none of us are going to be here with a mitigation tree. It's going to take forever. And I think Betsy brought up the best point about, you know, climate change and all of that. And we need to keep all the trees that we possibly can. You and I are in lockstep on the fee in lieu, and I think staff has done a really good job of using that as the last option, not as the first option. They've been really responsive to our concerns about that. I think that there are some exceptions that might allow for fee in lieu, but I think that it is, as you said, Michael, way down the list on, we'd rather have trees. And I think that we need to figure out another way that we're, you know, again, we're not planting twigs, because you know, those twigs aren't going to do anything. And maybe there's bigger tree wells or things of that sort. So I think we are at the option where we are saying the tree is going to stay there. And if there's another way to get a sidewalk in, I think that any investigation to try to bring it around the tree would affect the tree roots, and we don't know how far they go. I would not support that at all, because I think that's what happened at the Ermatinger house, and you know, and that's our property. So I think we need a motion on that, so it's official.
I will make a motion to deny removal of the tree.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody, if you're listening at home, thank you for submitting some testimony. Again, I think this is one of those things where, I think NRC has had some suggestions that we should definitely take into consideration and move those forward. So next on our agenda, we have communications. City Manager.
I have no updates for tonight.
Nothing
Thanks.
exciting going on. So, and unfortunately, sorry, I was gone, but I did get information from our communications team about some tree that fell down at the library. And when I went by there to see where the tree was, obviously I didn't get out of the car, but I guess, where was it? Was it on the 7th Street?
It was right across from the fire, the corner
7th
of.
Street side?
Yeah, 7th Street side, right across from the fire station.
Okay, so are we going to replant a tree of some sort?
I'll have to talk with Parks to see where they're at on that.
Okay, all right. Something else that would be complimentary there. Commissioners, any communications? Anybody have any meetings they want to report out on? Yes, excitement.
So I've had a few of you ask me how things are going in Salem, and
we do that as a courtesy.
I figured I would give an update on something that is particularly of interest to us, which is the housing and land use aspect.
Oh, God.
So, and I know that we've had conversations just earlier today about this, but it might be good to just get this out there for the public. And so for notes, I brought one of my own memos that I wrote for my boss about this bill, which is one of the governor's priority housing bills. I think it's something that we all agree is well-intentioned, but lacks input from those who actually have to execute these. And so just a few provisions from House Bill 2138. It would permit middle housing in urban unincorporated lands, and it would exclude the urban unincorporated areas outside of the metro area. This is interesting. Duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes may be constructed, and this is something we've talked about too, may be constructed as attached or detached dwellings, configured any way a developer chooses. It would remove exemptions for small cities from complying with middle housing. So the original House Bill 2019 originally only applied to cities of a certain size and cities within the metro area, and that would remove that exemption. And it would also allow density bonuses, which isn't something I'm particularly opposed to. I'm going to skip the thing on single room occupancies, but the interesting part about local government stuff is the original proposal would have prevented local governments from requiring a traffic impact analysis or attribute an exaction based on traffic impacts from middle housing developed on a lot or parcel for residential infill or redevelopment beyond normal development requirements. It's my understanding that this is going to be amended out, or at least amended to make it less bad. It would introduce a new 100-day timeline for affordable housing applications, a 63-day timeline for expedited land divisions, and it would streamline middle housing land division processes. It would also, they brought back our favorite term, clear and objective standards, and they had proposed expanding this to clear and objective standards for urban services and tree standards, which is quite apt for the conversation that we just had. Another thing that they wanted to do originally was taking out the requirement that cottage clusters have a shared courtyard, which for people who know what a cottage cluster is, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it is, again, my understanding that that's going to be amended out or somewhat altered. And really, this brings a lot of, the biggest red flag for me is the lack of traffic impact analyses. I think that's something, our last commission, we had a lot of discussions about what was in our authority to try and maintain that livability for our community as we get denser housing, both within the urban core, but at the outskirts of our community as well. That's one of the biggest red flags, but it also raises a question when they're trying to change the definitions of different types of middle housing is how, if you were to get an application and put it in front of our staff's desk, how would you, for example, differentiate between a detached quadplex, 4-unit cottage cluster that does not have a shared courtyard, or 4 detached townhomes? You can't really, I mean, it opens so many gray areas for what these missing middle housing types might actually look like, and just adds burden to our staff, and we're still trying to keep up with all of the mandates that have been pushed down to us already. We're not having the opportunity to let the positive aspects of some of those housing reforms in recent years actually play out. And so the league is being involved in this, and like I said, fortunately the chair of the committee and the governor have been somewhat receptive to these concerns, and so I will be sure to update you when the second amendment to this bill is dropped.
Oh,
Can I ask a quick?
Oh,
please.
And I know you already know this before.
Okay, go ahead and say it.
But there was the original, which I know is of importance to all of us, but I know this is something you care about specifically, is
And Rocky.
yes, the ability to skirt demolition review for historic homes that are listed on the register. Basically with the view from the proponents that it impedes more middle housing development.
Yeah,
The current amendment makes it so it's only contributing structures in an historic district, but there will also be another amendment, I think, to take that, pare that down a little bit more, so.
Yeah, it's, did you want to add something?
Oh, only that there were over 200 people who testified in opposition to the historic section of that bill. And I think that was a pretty good incentive for the governor's office to decide to take it out.
I submitted something about a month ago to our state legislators, I guess. So Governor Kotek, if you are listening, which I know you may not be, but just in case you are, we need infrastructure. I do not support building housing outside of the city's limits in the urban growth boundary. There is no infrastructure out there. We're not going to send it out there. It can't survive on septic tanks. So stop it, please. Stop messing with this. We're done. We're tired. I'm tired. I think every city in this state that I've talked to in the league is just, we can't figure out why they keep tweaking this when we have told the governor's office and her policy advisor on housing, we need money for infrastructure. We can't just throw houses anywhere we want. This is not a game of Monopoly where you can put your hotel and then take away all your houses and just keep piling them up. It doesn't work like that. And I'm just so tired of local governments getting the blame for these things when we are not to blame for this. So that is my soapbox, which I continue to advocate for on behalf of our city and other cities. It's just maddening. I'm just tired of playing defense all the time. Mr. Smith, do you have anything to report? Mr. Wilson?
I do not. Just that both Commissioner Marl and I were at the CIC meeting this last week, and I just wanted to thank Chief Davis, the report or the presentation you gave about the importance of Neighborhood Watch and kind of getting those reactivated in the communities. I think that was a great presentation. I think it's a great resource, and I hope our community takes heed of that and does, choose to engage and participate.
We still have our informal one in my neighborhood, which has been going on for 30 years. Okay. Michael, did you have anything? Okay. I just have a couple of things. We have some vacancies on the Natural Resources Committee, as was mentioned in their report, and I would like to reappoint Emily Leesburg and then appoint William Foster as the two members to fill those two vacancies, and that will take care of that. We have one vacancy on community enhancement, and that was Judy Schaefer was appointed to fill the unexpired term of Lori Aranello. Ms. Schaefer would like to continue to serve, so I'd like to appoint her to a regular slot on the enhancement committee. So that is all I have, and if we don't have anything else, we will be adjourned.